Welcome home, where we provide information, inspiration, and motivator after motivator after motivator here on America's Next. I have Sonny Martin here with me today. How you doing, Sonny?
Cedric, it's a great day, man, to be on this side of the dirt.
Hey, you say on this side of the dirt, huh? What do you mean by that? What goes into that?
Well, I tell you, each and every day we have the opportunity to be able to live our best lives. And I'm in the last chapter in my life, and I'm happy, and I'm still enthusiastic and excited about business, about empowering the next generation for entrepreneurship success. Because actually success runs in our race. In 1920, Madam C.J. Walker was in her grave, yet and still she became America's
Hold up.
first millionaire.
Hold up. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to go and find somebody else and bring them into the building. This man is already having an extremely valuable conversation with us today. These are the types of conversations that we need to be having. He said that success runs in our race. Go ahead.
Yeah, even there were slaves that emancipated themselves and became early millionaires in the beginning of the 1900s. In Atlanta, Georgia, you got a gentleman by the name of Alonzo Herndon, who started out as a barber and built just magnificent barbershops. And back in those days, white business people came to black barbers to get them their daily shave and their haircut. And he built one of the most luxurious barbershops in the entire United States with all black barbers. And then he realized that there was a need for black businesses and black churches to have insurance, and white insurance companies were not insuring black businesses and black families and black churches. So he started Atlanta Life Insurance Company, and he became Atlanta's first millionaire. He built one of the most luxurious mansions in Atlanta called the Herndon Home on the highest peak of the city of Atlanta in 1910. And if you were to Google the Herndon House in Atlanta, Georgia, you'll see what a magnificent house and mansion it is. They had carriages.
Hold up. I lost you. Audio. Okay, there you go. You were talking about the establishment that he created, but then I couldn't hear you anymore.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
We're good? Okay. Yeah, he was just an incredible entrepreneur, an ex-slave who embraced entrepreneurship. And also during that time, what makes Atlanta the Wakanda it is today, you had Booker T. Washington living in Atlanta, who actually, in 1890 something, the president of the United States had him be a keynote speaker at the Cotton States Exposition, which was after the Civil War, bringing the North and the South together. He wanted to showcase the talents and the business products and services of the Southern Cotton States, right? So Booker T. Washington was the keynote speaker, and he was head of the Negro Exhibition Building, which is now located where Piedmont Park is in downtown Atlanta. And he gave his most famous speech and rose to national prominence. And his whole mantra was that the Negro has got to obtain skills to be able to build himself up by his own bootstraps. Now, keep in mind the psychological and philosophical differences he had with W.E.B. Du Bois, who was also in Atlanta at the same time. Now, those of you that are studious and educated to understand what W. Du Bois's philosophy was, that Negroes needed to get an education. He was the very first African American to graduate from Harvard. So he couldn't teach in any of the white colleges. So he came to Atlanta where all the black colleges were, and he was a professor there. So him and Booker T. Washington butted heads many times because Booker T. Washington was pushing for black people to be entrepreneurs, get a skill, and build themselves up economically. W. Du Bois, with his talented 10th mantra, wanted black people to get educated. Now, both of them were right in their own ways. We needed both education and we needed our own skills. But what made Atlanta's infrastructure at the very, very beginning so strong is Booker T. Washington started the very first national organization of black businesses called the National Business League. The Atlanta Business League is still in operation today, over 100 years later. And he started chapters around the country promoting entrepreneurship, business ownership for black people, right?
Okay.
So in the earliest years of Atlanta, you had, black banks, you had Auburn Avenue, the historic street in Atlanta, where up and down the street was just a cadre of black owned businesses, And so when you think about the fictional Wakanda that people refer to Atlanta as, that's where it got started at.
Wow.
So I have been a student of entrepreneurship my entire life. I was not the academic student. I did not graduate from college. But, here's two things you need to know. Education can be obtained institutionally, or you can be thirsty enough to seek out education through books that are free in the library. So my earliest hobby was reading the success stories of business people, entrepreneurs of every kind. And I can't even expound upon the fact when I saw the first book about a black entrepreneur, it was like I went to sleep with it,
Right. Yeah.
because it showed me that we can be successful entrepreneurs too. And I learned about the Madam C.J. Walkers. I learned about the Alonzo Herndons. I learned about so many more iconic business folks. The person who taught Madam C.J. Walker the beauty business was a millionaire, right?
Yes.
And so I said, okay, I can pull myself up by my own bootstraps out of poverty. I had a single mother who was totally disabled by the age of 30. Dad had left. There was 4 of us in the family, and my mother was my mother and my father, because she's instilled in us boys a very, very, very strong work ethic. We had jobs at the earliest. I mean, carrying papers, mowing grass, raking leaves, shoveling snow, doing odd jobs for neighbors, because we needed the financial resources to help the family, the rest of the family, when my dad left, right?
Right.
So when you look around today, very few teenagers have jobs.
That's
in
right.
The early teens, and we look at the destruction of our economic base of young black kids in many metro areas throughout the country of dropping out of high school even. And they're not seeking to work at Wendy's, they're not seeking to work at McDonald's. Skill-based training of skills. When I was going to high school, if you weren't going to be on a college trajectory, you could take automobile mechanics, woodworking shops, other trades that you can learn in high school. Go to school half a day and be working in the trades the other half of the day and actually working for different companies. That's all gone with the baby in the bathwater. So these kids today, not only are they dropping out at massive numbers, almost 50% in 12 or 13 of the major metro cities in the United States, they're not even eligible for military service because of the poor reading skills and the issue with obesity. They're screen kids today. They're not out running and jumping and this, that, and the other. So, we've got a lot of work to do in our community. In 2018, I want to tell you one thing, and let me finish this. The Washington Post put out a report taking a snapshot of where the black community is today, 50 years since Martin Luther King was assassinated. It's been 52 years now since he was assassinated. How did he die? How did he give his life? Pushing the economic agenda in the black community in Memphis, sticking up for the sanitation workers who were making less than $1.75 an hour and weren't able to take care of their families. So he finally learned through Malcolm X that told him civil rights without economic rights is no rights for black people, right?
Okay.
And Malcolm X told him, said, listen, why are you pushing this inclusiveness and agenda? He said, We had black businesses in the black business community because we couldn't shop at the white stores and establishments, right? We had our own businesses in the communities. He says, who we give our money to will always control us. That's a failed economic agenda for the black community. Malcolm X continuously told Martin Luther King that, right? And yet and still, we went from spending 97 cents on the dollar that we possessed with black business folks to now we spend less than 3 cents on the dollar with black folks, right? And it just the whole thing flipped. So I'm a major proponent of urban entrepreneurship, as I call it today. I'm strong, but you got to learn skills. You know, today a lot of young folks don't read no books.
That's right.
That's where my education came from. It didn't come from a classroom. It came from reading the success stories of the John Paul Gettys, of the Kleenex family that created Kleenex.
Who was the Kleenex family?
That's what their name was.
Yeah, well, I've heard of the brand, but what's their story?
Yeah, I mean, their story was, you know, there wasn't what do you call industry leader in that business. So they did the same thing Bacardi did. There was a lot of rums. There was a lot of companies making tissues, but they created the brand Kleenex, named after their family. And it was all through marketing that it became the recognized brand for tissues to blow your nose. Okay. And the Bacardi family did the same thing. You know, people go to a bar and they say, give me a rum and Coke. Give me a rum and Coke. Well, there's 50 million thousand different rums available. You can get the low end rum, the middle range rum, or high end rum. They came out with a marketing campaign with this J-Lo Puerto Rican looking chick and said, the next time you go and you order your favorite cocktail, make sure it's a Bacardi Coke. Mm-hmm. You know, and they had this fine looking chick, and Bacardi Coke in a line was what set them apart and took their rum from obscurity to a top shelf rum. Right. You know, the Bacardi family is a family out of Puerto Rico. But, you know, when you study marketing, when you study, you know, what's his name? The world's most famous economist stated that there's two things, just two simple things that add massive value to any business. Number one is marketing. Number two is being innovative in your marketing. And of those two, marketing is number one.
Okay.
Because a funny thing happens when you don't advertise. Nothing.
And that's funny. Yeah. When did you start your entrepreneurial journey?
Man, I did go to college. I didn't graduate. So I had originally thought, like many urban kids, that I was going to play football and get in the NFL and buy mama a house.
Right. Yeah.
That was my career trajectory. It wasn't academics. And so I was a pretty, successful athlete through my career, football, wrestling, and track, and thought I'd be playing for the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Okay. Shout out to the Buckeyes.
And even worked out with them my junior and senior year. And then as a running back, I broke my ankle my senior year and had to sit out the rest of the season. But because I was still working out with the Buckeyes, I thought they would have a place for me. And the running back coach happened to be an African American, and he said, "Sonny," I got some bad news for you. He said, "We already have Archie Griffin."
Hey, for those people that don't know, Archie Griffin became a Hall of Famer.
Not only a Hall of Famer, the only individual in college football that has gotten 2 Heisman trophies.
Yeah,
the only one.
Right.
And he came up from a school not far from me, a public school. I went to Catholic schools. But the thing about it, I thought I'd at least be on the squad. Mm-hmm. And then it was discovered that they found out that I had a juvenile criminal record. And my juvenile criminal record it's kind of almost laughable, right? When I was building my paper route, I had one of the largest paper routes in the city. So what I did was I went and bought a car when I was 14.
Right.
And I parked it like 3 streets over, and none of my brothers and sisters or my mother even knew I had the car. But I can certainly carry more papers in the car than I could on the back of my bicycle, right?
Right. Yep.
And so one day I just got, stopped by the police because I had a bad muffler on the car. And they saw that the car started with a screwdriver and automatically assumed I stole the car, which was not the case. I paid for the car and had the title in the glove box, but the title was in the previous owner's name, and he had signed it over to me, but it wasn't in my name. Plus, I didn't have a driver's license at 14.
Right. Exactly.
They took me straight to jail. And because I was so big and had a deep voice, they automatically assumed I was over the age of 18. So they took me to the adult jail.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was my criminal record. And Rudy Hubbard, the running back coach at Ohio State, said, Sonny, he says, I could have maybe fought to get you on the team. But when Woody Hayes, who was the iconic, legendary coach at the time, his whole mantra was discipline. And Archie Griffin's dad was a Marine Corps drill sergeant, and Woody Hayes taught military affairs at Ohio State. And I didn't have a father, and he did. And it was just no hope for me playing. And I never forget riding my bicycle home with tears streaming down my eyes that my life's goal of playing for the Buckeyes was not going to be realized. And I got scholarships from all these no-name small colleges that I had zero interest in playing for. Right. And I have to tell you, it was a white gentleman that saved my life, because I literally thought that my future would be just a drug dealer or the best bank robber that ever walked the streets in America. And he told me, all that effort you put into being a phenomenal athlete, the discipline that you have, the miles you ran, the steps you ran, all the hours you did jumping rope and wrestling and track and all that. He says, you need to take that physical athleticism and turn it into a mental athleticism. And you would do very well in business. Physical athleticism and translate it to a mental athleticism about learning a skill, learning something that you become an expert at, because experts get paid at the highest end of the pay scale.
Absolutely.
And that just kind of rocked my mind, because I was not a good academic student, so I didn't know what assets I had that I could utilize to be successful. And I thought, because I had this deep radio voice, very white voice, that I'd be a news reporter, and went to school for that for 3 years, and even got a job while I was in school as a reporter at the local television station, and found out the discriminatory policies, and literally me being assigned to the hood, telling all the negative stories about black folks in the hood on the nightly news. And because I was a black man, telling stories about the dysfunctionality of the black community and those in the black community, I literally woke up one day and thought it was a right-wing conspiracy to make us look bad.
Wow.
It was being programmed in majority of white folks' houses. We were a minority community. So stabbed or shot or house on fire, drug chase, burglary, whatever, I was Johnny on the spot with the microphone with a black photographer telling a story. And I told my photographer, who was old enough to be my father, I said, man, this is a conspiracy. This is the reason why I get in the elevator with a white lady and she's hiding her purse because of all this negative depiction. I said, I didn't sign up for this. I said, they teach you in college that the news should be fair, balanced, and objective. And there's none of that. We're telling nothing but the negative stories, no positive stories. And so I quickly turned in my resignation, literally after 6 months, and left the news broadcasting business.
You were turned off at the fact that you thought that you were going to be like one of the folks that you saw on TV, doing a little bit of everything. But then when you got there, they had you almost specifically dealing with negative stories in urban areas.
Yeah, well, this was the 70s when black folks were green lighted to get into, major corporations or government jobs, and we started appearing on television as reporters, and some of them worked their way up to news anchors. But I was only the second Black person hired in the news business in my city, and so at a young age, I felt it was a conspiracy. And I went to my boss, who I did not believe was racist in any way, shape, form. Matter of fact, he hired me out of college, right? I was manager of my college radio station. He hired me, he gave me the job. But I went to him and told him my frustration of waking up every day and telling all the negative stories in the Black community. And he must have been having a pretty bad day, because he responded to me. He said, let me tell you what the news is. If it bleeds, it leads. And we don't have to look too far in your community for that. Now go out and get me another story. And the goose pimples I had on my arms, and just the shock of how he said what he said to me. He could have said the N-word or boy or whatever. That's how I received it. And my old Nat Turner self envisioned myself on the plantation owner tell me go out there and whip them Negroes, again, and you get them. And I just like, whoa, I can't do this no more. I'm not going to be a part of this in any way, shape, or form, right?
Yeah.
And I literally turned in my resignation that same day. And then, for about another year, bounced around to different radio stations as a disc jockey. But that was hilarious, because the radio stations were owned by white folks.
Right.
The Black radio stations were owned by white folks. And the only people Black in the station was the disc jockeys getting people to jump and jam and jab. And white folks was taking the money to the bank.
Right.
And I said, oh my God, I can't be a part of this neither.
Right. So two questions. Number one, did you realize how bold you were to walk away from that opportunity at the news station? Did you realize how bold you were to do that?
Man, I realized how crazy I was at first.
Yeah.
The crazy hit me upside the head. And I went and talked with my mother, who was my greatest advisor and coach. And she was a woman of few words, but she listened to me. And she told me that she was very proud of me, because if it's not right in your heart and you're not happy with it, you should never be involved in it. But I said, Mom, I've got something else wrong with me. I am not the person that just toes the line like everybody else. I know there's something in me that is different than everybody else. Yeah, everybody goes this way. I go the opposite way, because everybody going that way, And so I knew that I was different in that regard. My brothers and sisters were incredibly talented academic students. I was not at all. I sought the athletic route and just did barely best as I could just to stay on the team. I didn't embrace academics and learning at that point in time, because my whole focus was athletics. I could run, jump faster. I could lift more weights. I could jump rope for an hour and a half, 2 hours. I could do more push-ups, pull-ups. And I was not scared of nobody. I had no fear from no other man my age, right? And I excelled, greatly in athletics. But it wasn't until, I hit rock bottom, but realized my dream wasn't going to come true to play, collegiate sports for one of the most iconic, football teams in the country, that I had to transition, and I had to, start at the bottom, and I had to learn a skill. So I learned the broadcasting skill. I became manager of my college radio station. So I knew I always had, if my heart was in it, I was going to be at the very top of anything I did. But when that didn't work out, radio and television didn't work out, man, I was just back to square one. And I just decided and made a commitment that I'm not going to work for anybody. I'm going to become a businessman, because I can control me, right? And it's not about the money. It's putting together a product or a service and getting people to buy it and exceed their expectations, so they tell everybody to come do business with me. So it was hard being a kid and trying, because Black folks don't do business with each other, right? So because I had gone to all white schools, I learned the trick. You remember the show Charlie's Angels?
Yes.
Nobody knew who Charlie was, right?
Right.
The Angels went out and did his work. So if you're going to be in business, what type of customers, what percentage of customers you want to serve? The Black community only makes up 13% of consumers.
Mhm.
The white community is 62% of consumers. So if I told you you love fishing, and you just love fishing, if I told you go to this lake, you ain't gonna catch nothing. But over here is a much bigger lake. You can catch fish all day long. So I realized that my first business wasn't gonna be a Black owned business. But in order to break into the white consumer base, I knew I had to become like Charlie at Charlie's Angels. I had to be behind the curtain. So I hired, white Caucasian females and trained them in sales and marketing to go out and sell my service, and gave them a percentage and a commission off anything they brought me. And I started out in the entertainment business when disco became hot, selling sound and lighting equipment to nightclubs, restaurants, bars, hotels, or whatever. And they had to use my disc jockeys.
Mhm. Right.
And so, one of my mentors said, don't sell them the equipment, lease them the equipment. You'll
Right.
make way more money.
Mhm.
So I immediately embraced that philosophy, ended up getting a banker in my corner. Said, Sonny, sound and lighting equipment, it's got the lowest value of collateral in the world because the only resale for it is pawn shops. He
Right.
says, I'll go ahead and finance you obtaining this equipment, but you got to make sure that the establishments you put this equipment in stay in business at least 6 months to amortize and pay off the loan. And he helped me before debit cards or anything, he helped me by withdrawing from my checking account the loan amount and amortized it on a weekly basis for 6 months.
Mhm.
So after 6 months, the equipment's paid for and it's all cash.
Right.
But I'm
Okay.
still making money off the disc jockeys because I'm getting paid $100, $125 a night, and I'm only paying them $50 a night.
Mhm.
So in a very short period of time, and then in order to expand, I also got an SBA loan that allowed me to have more equipment. And next thing I know, I had 36 places that were leasing the sound and lighting equipment from me and using my disc jockeys, and built a $175,000 business in my 20s.
Mhm.
And then literally no one knew a Black guy owned the company.
Right. Wow. Wow. That's a big lesson right there. A lot of the times when we get into business, we think I have to be the person out in front, selling the business, marketing the business, running the business. But you're pointing out that it's also about the team. It's about the salespeople that you put in place to push your product. Now, I want to know this: were you ever called into an executive meeting with no one knowing that you were a Black man, and then had to deal with a culture shock in that moment?
Not early on because I was very disciplined to stay behind the curtains. I would come in and bring the equipment in. They just thought I was a hired help, right? And no
Right.
one knew who I was, right? And I would interact with clients that way. And it's because the business had my name, Sonny's, right?
Mhm.
And so, because I was on the Black radio stations, the white community didn't know Sonny equated to me being a Black man. And by the way, that's not even my name.
Right. Right.
But to your point, it was, when you're formulating a business plan, even if you don't write it all the way out, like, institutions, now require a lot of folks to do, you put a business model together and a strategy to attack the marketplace, right?
Mhm.
And it's got to be based on evidence, and it's got to be foolproof, and sometimes luck because the timing is right. The disco timing was right, where every nightclub, restaurant, bar wanted a disc jockey in it, and the value proposition to the owners was, you don't have to go out and buy all this equipment.
Mhm.
We'll provide it for you. You just pay us a small amount of money every week to lease it. And we'll change it out, new lights or whatever, this, that, and the other. And we provide the disc jockeys to operate the equipment so you don't have to pay for any expenses or repairs if it breaks down, right?
Right.
So that was a value proposition that they all embraced. big time. And I taught my salespeople how to sell that, and of course, they were good looking women on top of it, right?
Yeah, that helps.
Dealing with a male dominated, ownership and management of bars and restaurants and lounges and hotels, right? So that was very successful. But later on, when I became very, very successful and did step out of the spotlight and was doing most of the sales and stuff myself because I had more business I could handle. And my phone was ringing off the hook. And we also did all those fraternity, sorority dances, high school dances. We had 7 mobile units that were constantly doing those kinds of parties, corporate, events and that sort of thing. So we had 2 different lanes of business. The fixed establishments and then the mobile parties. And my constituency was not black folks, because black folks get a boom box and play at a party rather than paying $150, $200 to bring a disc jockey in back. So that was my first business. So I had $175,000 business in my 20s.
Wow.
And what happened was just what you just identified was when club owners realized that, a lot of black patrons were coming into their discos, and brothers love to dance, all right? And that's when white folks learned how to dance, particularly white females. So it'd be a whole dance floor full of white females, and the brother come in, look to the left, look to the right, and see no white guys dancing and jump on the dance floor. Now, it wasn't they was trying to have polka dot children, but the white club owners, oh man, they just absolutely hated to see a salt and pepper dance floor. And they would, do everything in the world to try and keep black patrons out by telling them it's a membership only club and you have to come in at 7 o'clock in the morning, get your membership card and blah, 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 blah. And there was a lot of discrimination going on to keep black folks. Now, good black folks could dance. But white guys couldn't dance at the time. And they didn't want to see their wannabe, girlfriend or, dancing with no brother. You know what I'm saying? And that's a whole nother issue. But it's when race really cultivated and invaded into my space. And all my white disc jockeys said, man, they're telling us to put on rock and roll music and country and western music to chase the black people out. And the people didn't come in here for no country and western music and hard rock and roll. You can't dance to that stuff. It became an issue. And I had to address it with the various different club owners, but they were just adamant about keeping black people out of their establishments, period, which was a clear racist, mentality. And I just got tired of it, man. And literally one day I flipped and sold my entire company. And I was financially, straight. And I said, man. And then I decided I was going to open up my own nightclub, and just the people that wanted the best music, the best dance music can come. And I opened it up in a predominantly all very upscale white neighborhood. And I went to a double closing. I sold my business in the morning and bought a nightclub in the afternoon, same day. I'm crazy like that, right?
Yeah, things happen fast for you, I see.
Yeah. I don't let no dust settle under my feet. But, I saw the opportunity, right? And man, you talk about getting absolutely sabotaged. The white media structure came out and said, oh, it's about time that an African American open up an upscale place for African Americans to go to in a very peaceful, good part of town, so they don't have to go into the hood, the ghetto anymore. And I said, that is like illegal. You get a liquor license, you cannot dictate a racist policy of who can come in the door. For you to even say it's going to be a 100% all black nightclub is denying me the ability to make money off of other races.
And that was my objective.
And white folks, back during those times, half of my staff quit because you didn't tell me this was going to be a black nightclub. I said, it's not, it's going to be a nightclub. They quit. And, back in those days, the most segregated, and still today, the most segregated day of the week is Sunday at church. Black folks go to black churches, white folks go to white churches. No, it's no different in the nightclub business. White folks go to white establishments and black folks go to black establishments for the most part, right? So here I am in a very upscale white area of town that black folks didn't live nowhere near, thinking that I was going to make money off of having a general market nightclub for anybody. And here the paper and the media says it's going to be a black nightclub.
Wow.
I sued them for $10 million and chased the lawsuits for a while until my attorney said, Sonny, let it go, man. You can't fight that kind of an establishment. I don't want to take all your money. And lo and behold, the club became enormously successful as an upscale black nightclub in an all-white area.
Wow.
And the biggest problem I had was the same problem. Excuse me. The biggest problem I had was the same problem Tony Montana had from Scarface. No one wanted the money.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we are having a very good conversation with Sonny Martin here. If you're listening, he is providing very valuable discussion today. And so we'll be right back with our second segment right after this brief message. America's Next Motivator, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern. America's Next Motivator, hosted by me, Cedric Riley, and sponsored by the Pride Empowerment Network. And we're back with Sonny Martin. Sonny, how you feeling out there?
Man, better than good, better than the most, highly blessed and sanctified, and happy to be talking to you, Cedric, and your audience.
For sure. You know what? It sounds like all throughout your life, you had to face the reality. You faced the reality of discrimination. You faced the reality that neither the media nor business is objective. And then you face the reality again once you started your own club and realized, hey, people just don't want to go to the same churches on Sundays. Did you ever realize a responsibility or a call on your life to help the younger generations figure out how to navigate as a result of the adversities that you faced?
Yeah, I have to be honest with you. In my 20s, I had a successful, sound system leasing business. In my 30s, I created my nightclub, and that lasted for 3 or 4 years. And I had the untimely death of my mother. I flipped and sold it with 24 hours.
Your audio. I can hear you now.
Okay, so
you said you sold the nightclub.
After selling my nightclub and the untimely death of my mother, it was time for me to leave Mayberry R&D, Columbus, Ohio. And I wanted to go to a much bigger, major metropolitan area. And I put a couple city names in the hat, and I chose Atlanta. along the short of it. And when I got to Atlanta, Georgia, man, I just have to tell you, I saw things I had never envisioned in my life. Black banks, black subdivisions with multi-million-dollar homes that were built by black developers and black home builders. Streets named after black folks. You know, I came from a city that was about 1.5 million to a city that was almost 6.4 million. Atlanta, Georgia, and had 1.9 million African Americans. And I saw so much economic and entrepreneur success. Man, I said, man, I'd much rather be a tadpole in this ocean than a big whale back in Mayberry, RD, Columbus, Ohio, right?
Right.
And I said, I don't know what's in the water here, but they're not athletes and entertainers that own these homes and own these businesses. These are business people, right?
Yeah.
And the homes were, the palatial estates and mansions and multi-million-dollar homes. They were not just athletes and entertainers. They were just straight up business people, right? But I met the man I always wanted to be my father, the mayor, the first black mayor of Atlanta. And he had an economic agenda and became the very first black mayor of a major southern city in 1973. And because of my news days, I really did. I had major distaste for politicians, period. They're talking about both sides of the neck and all depending on who they're talking to, what they're saying, right?
Right.
So I had major skepticism about this brother in Atlanta. And everything I read about him, people loved him like they loved Muhammad Ali. I mean, there'd be, goo gobs of people just following down the streets. And his background was he was an indigent lawyer, for poor people. And he rose up through city council and became mayor when all the white folks fled the city because of the busing and school desegregation and left the city black. And that's how black mayors just blew up all over the country. D.C., Chicago, Detroit, Washington, D.C., L.A. All these cities have black mayors because white folks ran for the suburbs, right? But this man was different because the black preachers really didn't even like him a lot. You know why? Why they didn't like him?
Why?
Because he talked about money and about black people getting rich. And you're taught in the black church for the love of money is a sin, right?
Right. Yeah.
So his mantra was not really taken very well with the black, clergy in Atlanta. But he said something to me when I first met him that just flew my wig off. And Atlanta is the birthplace of the civil rights movement, right? Martin Luther King, Auburn Avenue, Ebenezer Baptist Church. He said, Sonny, civil rights without economic rights is no rights for black people. We fought to be able to be at the lunch counter at the restaurant to eat, but if you ain't got no money, where you at? You're still in the same position. And when he became mayor of Atlanta, less than 1% of the city contracts were going to African Americans and women. And so people today historically say he's the architect of affirmative action. He told me, I'm not the architect of affirmative action in no way, shape, or form. White folks are the architect of affirmative action because prior to me coming to office, they affirmed all the contracts to their country club buddies, their friends, their family members, and people that don't look like us. He said, and it worked for them for 400 years. Mm-hmm. He said, I think it ought to work for us. So he had a mandate that 36% of all the city contracts were going to women and minorities, particularly African Americans who were disenfranchised through all those years. So if you're John Williams and you have the contract to insure all the police cars and fire trucks in the city one day or for 30 years, and all of a sudden Leroy Jones has got that contract, you're causing a lot of hell in Southern old white folks.
Right.
So he did it, and he was bold with his thinking. He said, my goal is to make black people wealthy and create wealth in the black community. And with the stroke of a pen, I can give contracts to black folks. Now, the goose with the golden egg in Atlanta, the city of Atlanta is smaller than the city of Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
It's smaller. However, the goose with the golden egg of the city of Atlanta owns and operates the Atlanta airport.
Okay.
Which is the busiest airport in the world.
Right. Oh, okay.
So when you look at those leases on all those restaurants and stores in there, he had a mandate. He told McDonald's, he told Burger King, he told all them franchise, KFC, if you don't have a black operator in here, don't think about getting your lease renewed in this airport. So he
Wow.
made them go out and find black folks. And he put an infrastructure in to make sure that Leroy Jones was not just the owner in face. He truly was the owner, right?
Right.
You know, they was running up trying to find some black person, making the
Trying
CEO.
trying to pull a Charlie Angels move on him.
Exactly right. So
Right.
he put in place the background of the infrastructure to be able to make sure there was no shiggity going on in the contracts.
Mhm.
But think about it. If you had the contract to supply the Atlanta airport with toilet paper, you're a multimillionaire.
Right. Yeah.
And say you had the toilet paper contract and I had the paper towel contract. I'm a millionaire.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So he went to Georgia Pacific and these big paper companies and said, listen, you need to find an African American distributor to carry your products into this airport.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
Yeah.
you need to make sure that your prices are in line with what you would charge any other distributor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he created so much wealth in Atlanta. And so after, 2 or 3 years me living there, I approached the mayor and I wanted to write a book about his life because I said there's been no person, no particularly African American, that's created more millionaires than you have. I said Don King's created a lot of millionaires, but he pretty much took all their money, the boxers. I said, Maynard created generational wealth in Atlanta. They're in the third generation of wealth in those contracts, right? And the infrastructure, the government infrastructure in Atlanta, there's been no major city in the United States that has had a continuation of black mayors from 73 to today, a total continuation of
Right.
black mayors, and majority city council members and the county commissioners are black. So that's real economic power. So you growing up in that environment and being exposed to that, what's your thought? I need to get me some of this, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I'm going to the mayor and I was trying to induce him to let me do a book about his life. I mean, I looked at him like a Martin Luther King. He's generationally creating wealth in the black community. There's nobody that's done what he's done in the history of the United States, right? And he was a politician. He was not a business owner himself until after he got out of office. And he just, he was the type of guy that didn't like the spotlight on him. He was a common man. He had no security detail whatsoever, right? And the white establishment didn't like him a whole lot because too many of them had lost sizable contracts under his administration, right? So they were highly upset. And he rocked the boat. He came in like Eddie Murphy. There's a new sheriff in town, and this is what it's going to be because these are the people that put me in office because y'all can't vote in the city of Atlanta because you left for the suburbs, right?
Right. Yeah.
So he was a towering, strong, tall, big man, 6'4", weighed almost 300 pounds, and was extremely articulate. And he was a lawyer, right? So he turned me down about writing a book about his life. But one day out of the blue, that man called me up. The mayor called me up and wanted me to meet him at a restaurant. He says, and I said, well, my persistence is going to break through. He's going to allow me, I can return back to my journalistic roots from college, right?
Yes.
And I'm thinking he's going to allow me to write this book about his life. And I go to meet with him again. He said he didn't want a book written about his life. He said, but I want to put you in the publishing business. He said, I want the world to see as everybody has made treks from all over the country to come to Atlanta. We got the greatest black colleges in the United States all on one campus here. He says, I want there to be a documented annual publication that comes out that showcases the talent and the assets in the black community along various different platforms, corporate, entrepreneurship, religious, nonprofit. He said, because I want these white folks who said they can never find no black folks to see like a yearbook. You remember your yearbook in high school that you get at the end of high school? He said, I want there to be an annual yearbook that would come out. He says, and Martin, you're the guy to do it. He said, now I can't tell you how you're going to get paid because it's not going to be a city contract because of obvious reasons. He said, but I'll point you in the direction and introduce you to some of the most phenomenal, highly successful Black folks living in Atlanta, Georgia, if you agree to take on this project. He said, but I believe you're smart enough to figure out how you'll make money, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was like almost levitating. I returned to my entrepreneur base. But here is the mayor that's going to make entree to me to the most successful Black people in Atlanta. And I'm a newbie, right? Yeah. Prior to my mom dying, this is very important for the next generation to understand. And people today, you are going to become who you are based on who you surround yourself with. You are going to become who you are based on the company and the people you surround yourself with. So my mother always told me, seek to be in the company of people smarter than you, wealthier than you, and more prosperous than you, that you can become part of their network, right? And so when this opportunity was afforded to me, I was working in corporate America in Atlanta, because I had just recently got there. And I was a regional sales trainer for Toyota. And I loved sales. I hated the car business, but I said, oh my God, this man's going to introduce me to the most successful Black folks in Atlanta, Georgia. Yep. He said he's going to get in his Rolodex. You remember Rolodexes?
Yeah. All those cards on that wheel. Yep.
Yeah. He said he'd personally make the phone calls and introductions if I would agree to do this. He said, but you're going to have to figure out how to get paid. Mm. And so literally it took me 18 months. I quit my job like boom. It took me 18 months to interview 300 of the most successful Black people in Atlanta, Georgia, face to face. Wow. And the mayor was right. I had no way of monetizing it at first because I had to do the interviews at first, right? Mm-hmm. And I became evicted and homeless and, but I can't tell you, I was so rich. My spirit was so rich from the people I interviewed, sitting with Hank Aaron and sitting with Lee Haney and sitting with Mr. Russell, who had the country's largest, Black construction company, and sitting with the Black architects and the Black restaurant owners that had, multiple chains of restaurants. I was richer than Solomon was from those relationships and wow. And them pouring into me their stories and how they became, because we all came from the hood, right? None of us were born with a gold spoon in our mouth, right? Right. So these were first generation pioneers, right? They didn't inherit the companies from their family members. They started stuff, right? Right. So I just, if I can just get to another day, get to the day. So the goal was 300 people. The mayor and I decided that would be the number. And I completed all the interviews, wrote all the stories. I had Kinko's on a computer with money borrowed from, friends and family members and anybody else. Was living in my car. Tyler Perry and I were homeless at the exact same time in Atlanta. Wow. And the Atlanta Public Library was our office, and Kinko's was where we made phone calls at, right? Right. And I would laugh at him, he would laugh at me. And he said, good luck with doing books, man. The best place to hide stuff from Black people is in a book because they don't read. Right. I said, good luck with being a drag queen and doing your plays. And we used to laugh at each other, right? But the monetization of my idea, I thought that I was creating a manuscript. I was sending around the publishing companies and they would buy the manuscript and publish the book for me, right? Mm-hmm. I wasn't a publisher. Man, 47 rejection letters I got stating exactly what Tyler Perry said. Black people don't read. They don't go in Barnes and Noble. They don't buy books. And the best place to hide something from Black people is in a book. Wow. And what? I'm thinking like, man, I don't. It's over, suicide, right? I just absolutely committed career suicide, right? This ain't gonna work. And if it wasn't for the fearless, strong Black woman that helped me do the research in the library, she says, I don't care how many turned down letters you got. You're going to become a publisher. And I'm looking, I said, man, I got maybe 35 cents in my pocket. And you're telling me I'm going to become a publisher. I don't know what a publisher does, but I know it takes money, and I have none of that. And I've wasted almost 18 months of my life interviewing folks. And I find out, as everybody has touted, that Black folks don't read.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, well, you're going to become a publisher. The Lord would have not have sent you on this journey to get to the 5-yard line and just fall down. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go. She went and grabbed me books on becoming a publisher, self-publishing a book. She said, you're going to sit here and you're going to read these books on how to self-publish your own books, or you're going to get out of my library because I don't like wasted talent. And she was just very fierce with me, man. Mm-hmm. And so over the next week or so, I read through those books and I realized a publisher only does 4 things. I don't see if you can see my finger. 4 things. He either creates or acquires a work that's worthy to be published. Number 1. Well, I created the work, right? Mm-hmm. Number 2, he's got to get it printed, in print, and edited. Okay. Didn't have number 2. Then he's got to be able to market and sell it. Number 3 and 4. Just 4 simple things. I said, well, wait a minute. I wasn't that good in math, but if I had to reduce this down to as low as denomination, I got 3 of the 4 done. I know I can do 3 of the 4, but printing and editing, I didn't know nothing about. So I started getting quotes from printing companies and editors to edit what I had done, man. And it reduced down to the smallest fee of $8,000 for 5,000 copies. That was so small. I mean, now keep in mind, I still only had 35 cents in my pocket, right?
Right. Yep.
How was I going to get $8,000 to publish the book? Mm-hmm. So I thought I had, a pretty high paying job working for Toyota, and I'd been gone for 18 months. I said, I know what I'll do. I'll go back and get my job. I'm making good money there, and I'll save money for my check to get this book done before the mayor runs me out of town for not finishing this project, right? So I go back to Toyota, and of course, what did they say? Well, you've been doing for 18 months.
Right.
You haven't been in prison, have you?
Right. Well, you know what? Let's continue this conversation off air, because unfortunately we have reached the end of this particular episode. I've been talking about you to people that I know for the past 2 weeks. We talked on the phone for 3 hours a couple weeks ago, something that you normally would charge people $1,000 for. And one of the major things that you not only taught me then, but you're teaching everybody today is find a way to monetize your business. Give back. Be cognizant of the entire space that is the world, and go out there and definitely, certainly, absolutely be victorious. Mr. Sonny Martin, I want to let you know that I've listened to your story today and that I consider you to be walking history. I don't think that I would have done anything right had I not brought your story to this platform, and I appreciate you taking your time out to do so. I want to give you a crown today while you're still living, give you your respect, and let you know and let the world know that you are America's next motivator.
All right, my brother. It's been great to be with you, Cedric. Keep up the good work, my friend.
Absolutely. Thanks for stopping by, all right?
All right, my brother.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I know the president of the network is looking at his watch like, hey, man, what's this guy doing here? Each and every episode of America's Next Motivator is going to have something here for you. All you've got to do, just like you did today, is stop by and pick it up. Hey, Sonny.
Yeah, man.
Hey, man, you are a walking encyclopedia.
Well, I'm studying. I'm true to the game, not new to the game, man. So, I created a multi-million-dollar publishing company and figured it out.